Today, we are tackling one of history's most chilling and, honestly, most important questions. How did Adolf Hitler, a man who seemed destined for total obscurity, manage to seize absolute control of Germany? You know, this wasn't just about one evil man. It was a perfect storm, where a deeply wounded nation met a man who knew exactly how to exploit every single one of its fears and weaknesses.
So let's just state the central puzzle right here. I mean, think about it. A rejected art student, a low-ranking corporal in the army, how does that guy, in just over a decade, end up holding the fate of Germany and really the entire world in his hands? How is that even possible? Well, to figure it out, we've got to look at two things that came together at exactly the right, or maybe the most horribly wrong moment in time.
This whole thing really comes down to two key ingredients. First, you have the man himself, a young, angry, and deeply frustrated Adolf Hitler. And second, you've got the moment. A Germany that had been brought to its absolute knees by a devastating war and what it saw as a deeply humiliating peace.
Hitler's early life, it really just reads like a story of constant rejection and frustration. He was born in Austria, had a really domineering father, and he was, by all accounts, a pretty mediocre student who dreamed of being this great artist. But when he moved to Vienna, he was rejected not once, but twice by the Academy of Fine Arts. So this personal sense of failure and deep resentment just kind of festered as he drifted aimlessly. But then, World War I happened. And for this failed artist, the army gave him everything he craved: structure, purpose, and a powerful cause to latch onto: German nationalism. The war literally forged him into something new.
So, while Hitler is finding his new purpose in the trenches, Germany is about to lose its pride. The war ends in defeat for them, and the victors impose the Treaty of Versailles. Now you gotta understand, this wasn't just any old peace treaty. For millions of Germans, this was a national shaming. It was a document they believed was designed specifically to cripple and humiliate their country for generations to come.
And the terms, they were absolutely crushing. The German army was slashed to a tiny fraction of its former size. They were forced to pay these massive financial reparations. They lost valuable territories and all their overseas colonies. But the deepest cut, the one that truly poisoned the well of German politics, was Article 231, the infamous War Guilt Clause. Germany was forced to accept sole blame for the entire war. This created this powerful and frankly dangerous story of betrayal, the stab-in-the-back myth, and a burning desire for revenge that Hitler would learn to harness perfectly.
Okay, so you've got the ingredients, right? A resentful nation and a radicalized veteran. Now let's look at what happens when those two things combine. This is the phase where Hitler gets into politics and starts to forge a tiny, fringe group into a powerful and dangerous political weapon.
And his path into politics was, well, it wasn't exactly conventional. The army actually hired him to spy on extremist political groups. One of them was this tiny little group called the German Workers' Party. But during one meeting, he apparently couldn't stop himself. He stood up to speak, and in that moment, he discovered his one true, terrifying talent: a magnetic, almost hypnotic ability to captivate a crowd. He quickly joined the party, took it over, renamed it the Nazi Party, and molded the whole thing around his own identity as the Führer, the absolute, undisputed leader. So in 1923, Hitler tried to just seize power in a violent coup in Munich. Tactically, it was a complete and utter failure. It was put down almost immediately. But here's the crucial part. Hitler was a master at turning disaster into opportunity. His trial for treason became a national soapbox for his ideology. The Nazis who were killed became martyrs for the cause. And while he was in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, laying out his twisted vision for the world and creating the movement's foundational myth. He turned a total loss into a huge win.
This quote right here, it really reveals everything you need to know about his worldview. It's this chilling all-or-nothing philosophy. You see, for him, politics was never about debate or compromise. It was a brutal Darwinian struggle for total victory or complete annihilation. And that extremism would define his entire career.
You know, prison taught Hitler a really valuable lesson. Brute force alone wasn't going to work. To win, he realized he had to destroy the democratic system from within. So this next phase, it's all about how he used political maneuvering, combined with a devastating global crisis, to finally get his shot at power.
For years, the Nazis were just a fringe party. Nobody took them seriously. Then, in 1929, the Wall Street crash kicked off the Great Depression, and Germany was hit catastrophically. Millions of people lost their jobs, their savings, everything.
The democratic government seemed totally helpless, just paralyzed by political squabbling. This economic chaos, it was the fertile ground the Nazis had been waiting for all along. Desperate people started looking for radical solutions, and they were willing to listen to a strong leader who promised to fix it all.
And just look at the impact on his political fortunes. It is absolutely staggering. In 1928, before the crash, the Nazis were basically a political joke, barely getting any votes. By 1932, deep in the Depression, they were the single largest party in Germany, with nearly 14 million votes. All of a sudden, Hitler's message of blaming scapegoats, Jews, communists, the Treaty of Versailles, and his promise to restore German greatness found a massive, desperate audience that was ready to listen.
In January 1933, the old guard of German politics made a fatal, catastrophic mistake. Thinking they could control him, they appointed Hitler as chancellor. What followed was just a breathtakingly rapid demolition of democracy. I mean, within a month, a fire at the Parliament building becomes the perfect excuse to suspend basic rights and crush political opponents. Then comes the Enabling Act, which effectively gave him the power to rule by decree. A year later, he brutally purges his own party of any potential rivals in the Night of the Long Knives. And then finally, when the elderly President Hindenburg dies, he merges the two offices, becoming the absolute Führer of Germany. In just 18 months, democracy was completely gone.
And this is the point we really have to understand. Hitler's rise was never just about politics for politics' sake. Gaining absolute power wasn't the end goal. It was the key that unlocked the door, allowing him to finally unleash the horrific ideology he had been brewing for over a decade.
At the absolute core of that ideology was a virulent, racist anti-Semitism. So with the entire state now under his control, the Nazis began to implement what they chillingly called the final solution, a systematic, bureaucratic, state-sponsored plan for the genocide of all of Europe's Jewish people. This number, it's almost impossible to truly comprehend. Let that sink in for just a moment. 6 million. 6 million Jewish men, women, and children were systematically hunted down, rounded up, and murdered by the state. This was the ultimate, horrific destination of that political movement that started in a little Munich beer hall.
And the consequences didn't even end there. Hitler's ambition was never just about Germany. His dictatorship was the direct prelude to World War II, a global conflict that would claim the lives of tens of millions more people and leave the world in ruins.
So we're left with this really sobering question. Hitler's rise wasn't inevitable. It wasn't destiny. It was the result of that perfect storm: economic desperation, national resentment, and the catastrophic failure of political leaders to stop a charismatic demagogue before it was far too late. His story serves as this timeless, terrifying reminder of just how fragile our democratic institutions can be, and why understanding these warning signs is more important today than ever before.